Hello everybody, my name is Donna Swanson. I'm the Executive Director at Focus Alternative Learning Center, here with my pals, presenting our show, Focus on Autism. Focus Alternative Learning Center is an agency that works with individuals on the autism spectrum, and we have an extended day treatment program as well as 2 group homes. And today we have with us my co-host, Lucas Hofstetter, who will explain what we are going to be talking about on this particular session. And we're just really happy to be here, and everybody is doing such a great job. We do have a stand-in. Alex was not able to be here today, so we have Sharon stepping in for Alex. And she does pretty much know exactly what Alex would say. So we thought it would be good to put her on the spot and speak for Alex today. I'm going to turn it over to you, Lucas, and have you explain what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure thing, boss. Today's topic is our advice to parents of newly diagnosed kids on the spectrum, really of any age, because the diagnoses can happen at any age these days. But we're going to be hopefully providing you guys with some useful information on what you can do if you have a kid, or even if you just know somebody who was recently diagnosed and you're kind of struggling with figuring out where to start, what to do, and where to go from here. So that will be our topic. And
as it stands right now, they're figuring out about 1 out of 100 are being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders.
More and more, yep.
As you can see, it's more often in boys than girls. 4 times more in boys than girls?
4 point something, but yeah.
I'm not that precise. 4 is good for me. And that the spectrum it covers many different things. And I know we say it over and over again, but what Stephen Shore says is if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And I think that when you look around at all of our panel here, and this is only a few of the faces that we have, everybody's very different. And some of our guys have been diagnosed early. Some of our guys weren't diagnosed till their 30s. You were diagnosed when you were
12-ish, I think.
Andy?
23.
Alex was 5. Emily, you were kind of, we don't really even know what age it became more clear when you were like 18 or something like that, I think. But you had some developmental delays. How about you, Dan?
I think my mom said I was about 7 or 8 when I got the diagnosis.
I think you were right. I think 7 or 8. So Lucas, I'm going to let you start.
All right. Well, excuse me. One of the first questions that parents often ask us when we present about where do I go now, what do I do, really is what can I do to help my kid? And there are a lot of different services that are out there, and I think as a mother, Sharon can probably speak a bit more specifically to those in a moment. But really, the first thing to do is to look into, first of all, try and figure out what your kids' needs are, because everybody has different needs. Some people need different sensory considerations taken, some people need different academic modifications. There's a whole wide range. And then for each of those different needs, you need to find the correct service that provides for that need. And again, I think some of my colleagues can go into a bit more detail about what those services are and their availability. But really, it's about figuring out what the need is and finding the best way to meet it. And I think really that's probably about it for that part.
Well, how did that work for you and your parents?
Well, in my case, I was first diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was around 12, just turned 12. And my needs in that case, some of them were immediately clear, some of them were not. I have 20/40 vision, so I needed some modifications in the classroom to be able to see the board. I had preferential seating in class so as to be close to the front of the room. I also had a number of other considerations made, such as Donna wrote me an excuse from physical education in school. Because,
high school?
Well, high school, yes, because there was just tremendous amount of social pressure and very uncomfortable situations there that I just wasn't ready to navigate. Another thing, I had a teacher help me stay organized and not miss the bus at the end of the day by gathering up all my homework assignments and leaving them in a central location for me where I could pick them up and just take them home without having to rush around everywhere. And And probably one of the biggest things was that I attended Focus as a client and received milieu therapy there, and perhaps even more importantly made some lifelong friends, some of the best friends I've ever had.
But Lucas, before you were diagnosed, you were considered different as well, correct?
Well, by that you could probably more accurately say ostracized by my peers, yes, and by adults in general as well, because I didn't really fit in, was thought of by others as very intelligent, and then they couldn't understand why I had the difficulties I had. So yes, it was made painfully obvious to me that I was different. It was rather thrown in my face.
And how did your parents handle that, and how did they do at home?
Well, my parents were at odds. My dad didn't really know what to do and didn't seem to think that much action was necessary. My mom was a really tremendous advocate, and she went out and did every bit of research she could, sought out every potential, viable seeming source of help she could, and eventually, after taking me to a number of psychologists who basically told her all more or less the same thing, which was that they didn't know what to make of me, she then brought me to Focus.
So again, the advice is for parents to get as much information as they can, really try and understand what it is that about their child that they're looking for help for, and to get to those issues.
Yeah, educate yourselves, because generally people aren't going to come forward and just hand you the information you need on a platter. You've got to go find it.
Andy, what's your advice to parents out there?
Just to understand that it's not like a bad thing. I was happy when I got diagnosed with that. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at 23, like I was mentioning, and I viewed that as like a relief because I now knew more about myself. So.
But you had other diagnoses before.
Well,
that.
yeah, like learning disability and ADD, and ever since I was 3. So I knew that I was different, but now this was more gratifying. So.
It fit better.
Fit better. It fit a lot better, yeah.
So then you're sort of encouraging parents to help get the right diagnosis.
The right diagnosis, yeah.
Which is it's easier today, I think, that there's much more awareness about autism spectrum disorders, and but you were always a very anxious little boy,
yeah.
and then had the attention issues, and
yeah.
Something that your parents did is find things that you like to do.
Yes.
And that made you feel successful in certain areas,
Yep.
like track,
and my guidance counselor was a big player, I guess you could say, or a figure, like in that regard, helping me get involved with the high school track team. So.
And I happen to know your parents, and one of the things is parents need to also accept what their kids can do and can't do. And your mom loved all those educational games and puzzles and things like that.
I didn't really do that. I kind of avoided those things.
Yeah, you didn't like those things. Why?
I don't know. Because I was more interested in like watching the game and stuff, and learning about like the stats and stuff like that.
And so I don't think that's how your brain worked. Your brain didn't work to want to do puzzles and things like that. So she gave up on that idea after a while.
But puzzles, I like to do them a little bit, but not as much as the other things. So.
Yeah. So you're more of a doer and an action kind of guy.
And like kind of like observing as like watching the games and stuff like that.
So your advice is to have parents understand what their kids are good at, and like to let go of
what they can and can't do. So.
Yes. Yeah. Alex/Sharon, what would you say?
Okay, Alex would say to help your children understand. Help them understand what's different, explain it to them, help them to deal with their particular issues, whatever their problems are, and always listen to your child when they're talking, even when they're not talking. Alex says that repeatedly. Even for him, he had speech, but when he was frustrated and upset, he couldn't get it out. So always listen, look at your child's behavior, and try to figure out what's going on from that. I know that's very important to Alex. And from my perspective, I agree, explain to your child what this diagnosis means, what it is, what the strengths are, what things you might need help with, and get all the information you can, like Lucas said. Find services. There's a lot of stuff out there. Sometimes it's hard to weed through it. I always say find a local parent support group to help you. Talk to other parents who are in the same situation. They'll recommend books, they'll recommend agencies that work for them. And then, of course, therapists, depending on what you're looking for, occupational therapists, speech therapists, depending on your child's needs. And look for that.
Emily, what would you say? What advice would you like? You know, we've been on many panels together, and you remember a lot of the questions that parents ask. And one of the things that they're so happy about when you're on a panel is to finally see a girl, because girls are not as, it's not as common in girls, and the issues are a little bit different. But what would you recommend to parents?
Well, I would just say that it's definitely not something you would find out right away. Sometimes it's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack, because I was, for instance, when I was in school, my brother was the squeaky wheel and I was not. So he got the grease and I did not.
Right. So trying to your mom advocated for you, but sometimes the school or others did not, because you were so quiet and so well behaved, you kind of got overlooked a little bit about what your special needs were.
Mm-hmm.
So your advice to parents is to keep, even if you're not a squeaky wheel, if something's different, try and figure that out and advocate for that child.
Yes.
And what were some of the things that helped you when you were younger, or even now? I kind of know some of the things because I've known you for so long. Is like your mom, you used to like. You liked music and ballet and stuff, but you didn't like doing them in group activities so much, remember?
Yeah.
So, so your mom stopped asking you to, stop trying to have you do that, because it just, even though you liked it, it was too stressful for you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that goes back to Andy and what everybody's saying is to understand what you're good at and what you can handle. But then she found other things that you really like to do, that whatever interest that you were in at that time, and in your artwork, and so you had plenty of opportunities to do the things that you like to do.
Yeah.
And just letting you be you, and not kind of pushing you a little bit, nudging you a little bit, but not making you do things that you didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you would recommend to parents?
Yeah, I think so.
Any other thoughts?
If we end up not liking a lot of the stuff, it does not mean we're lazy or anything. I mean, I didn't like camp, I didn't like piano lessons, I liked ballet, but not the group things, all that, and I ended up quitting all that stuff. But I just liked being at home. I was less anxious there.
So, and that's something that you and Andy have in common, is like that comfort zone, and you too, Dan, right? Just being in that comfort zone. Although Andy, you're more willing to go out and take a little more chance. I know Lucas likes his comfort zone. And also with food, that's something that, Dan, you can comment on too, is that parents need to understand that food is something that can be very particular, and you definitely had certain things that you liked to eat, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And so did your mom make you eat things that you didn't like to eat?
Not usually. She would give me something else instead. Of course, I would have to, my share of vegetables and all that stuff. But but then but like instead of mashed potatoes, she would give me macaroni and cheese on the side.
Yeah. So really trying to, because the important thing was that you ate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she also, like you loved your cats and things like that. So making sure that you had things that you could relate to, and you know, having your few friends, not having a ton of friends, and so really just understanding you and what you needed, and not making you go out and do things that you didn't want to do, but trying new things. And then if you didn't like it, she didn't think you were lazy. She just understood that it wasn't for you. You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Dan?
On what would you like me to comment?
Lucas? What should Dan comment on?
Well, see, I think you might know Dan a little bit better than me in this regard, but just from my experience with you, Dan, I think you might want to speak a little bit about some of the things that your parents have done to help you feel more comfortable.
And what you think parents of kids who have been just diagnosed, what's important?
Well, from what I remember, because I don't remember everything when I was first diagnosed. A lot of, I went through a couple different therapies before I eventually got to Focus. Focus was my first occupational therapy. There was a couple other therapies that I had gone through before I went to Focus, such as what was it? I forget what it's called, but there was a certain type of therapy where I originally had trouble using my fingers and stuff. So and some stuff that most people would kind of learn when they're little. And
That's occupational therapy and sensory. You had sensory.
I had some sensory issues. Well, Focus is occupational, isn't it?
More social skills.
More social, yeah. Yeah, I had some small issues that I needed to work, and I think that no, it's not just me. I think I know a handful of other people who have kind of more or less gone through the same kind of therapies before eventually either winding up at Focus or other therapies.
So trying different things.
Trying different things. It really depends on the child's personality and what they actually need.
And I know that your parents worked very hard on
Yes.
trying to understand you and advocating for you, and sometimes that was not an easy job. That people, you know, often thought that what your behaviors were, that you could control yourself and that you were doing this on purpose. And your parents really did not believe that. They understood that you were, you know, 'cause you were having trouble, and that it was who you were, not that you were trying to be bad.
No.
So that, I think that's something that I hear you saying indirectly, is that you want that parents should really try and understand what, and I heard Alex and Alex's mom Sharon say that too, is understand what the behavior is and what the behavior is trying to say. Because you did not like noise.
No.
You didn't like to be touched. There were other things.
Particularly noise was what really drove me mad sometimes.
It drove you mad.
Yeah, basically. Well, yeah, I could handle certain things. It just, what really drove me crazy is noise. I was particularly sensitive about noise when I was younger.
Are you still?
Less so. It still irritates me to some degree when something's really loud. Like but I've started to experiment with different things with noise. Like I went to a Star Wars concert last summer.
Right.
Not last. I think it was this past winter, where they played a bunch of loud music in a stadium.
And how did you do?
And I had to block my ears because it was very loud. But yeah, I did. Otherwise, I did fine.
Yeah, one of our kids wears earphones at the group home because he doesn't like it. He has them around his neck,
All right.
so that
Oh,
whenever
I know.
things, you know, Jesse, he has them around his neck, so that when things get too loud, he just immediately puts them on because that makes him so stressed out. So there are little tips that parents can do that help. And we talked about food. Now you were a pretty picky eater too.
I still admit I still am. I think to some degree.
Yeah. And how picky are you?
Now I'm less so than when I was younger, where it was pretty much there were hardly any foods that I would eat. I was very against trying anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Trying anything new was kind of out of order. I didn't really want to try new things. because I kept liking the. I was very repetitive.
Yep.
So trying to repetitive things.
And one of the things I know that your parents had said is that something that really worked for you was weighted blankets.
Yes. Actually, I still have one now, but the weight really helps.
And so you like the weighted blanket. That's helpful for you, but for Alex, he didn't like that.
Yeah, didn't work. It was too confining. He has to move around more in bed.
What's something that helps for you?
Just a magazine or just music in general, stuff like easy stuff like that. So.
But noise doesn't bother you so much.
No, it doesn't.
Were you at the concert that he was at?
No, but he told me about it. It was pretty cool. So.
That was awesome.
That's pretty cool that you were able to go.
Yeah.
Lucas, what works for you?
Not noise. Not noise, not loud situations, not lots of people. I need lots of quiet and lots of downtime, time to myself, time to just really be left alone and not have to be around people, because being around people requires a very great deal of energy. And I find that over the course of a day, even notwithstanding work where it's sort of expected, I spend so much of my energy just being around people and holding it together that when I get home I don't really have that much left over to do anything but rest. So downtime is very important to me.
And you don't like a lot of light either.
No.
Things too bright.
No, things can get very bright very easily. And in fact, we had a few years ago, a neighbor of mine had someone cut down a tree near our house, which was just over the property line on his side, but which shaded my bedroom, which absolutely infuriated me because it made my bedroom a lot brighter, and it didn't make it much easier for me to relax. And
Of course, he didn't know that.
well, I was advised by several people that I spoke to in my family that it probably would not go very well for any of us if I had gone over and said something to him.
Because he has the right to cut
Yeah.
his tree down.
Yes.
Now, Alex does not like a lot of light either. Light bothers
Light
him.
can be a problem, and when you were talking about the noise, I think it's important for parents to know that it's not just the blender and the vacuum cleaner and the hair dryer and the loud noises. Alex used to talk about that kid next to him who keeps scratching on his paper, and I was like, what? The sound of the pencil writing on the paper from the next kid in the next seat used to drive him crazy. And very faint noises, things we can't even hear, are sometimes the most irritating noises for Alex and some other kids too.
Yeah, these guys have incredible hearing abilities, right? Bunny ears and
Eagle eyes and bunny ears, yeah.
yeah, they can.
Tiger reflexes.
And Dan, you're very sensitive to noise.
Yeah.
Emily, what are you sensitive to?
I'm also sensitive to noise and
Smells.
smells, definitely smells, and touch. I hate certain surfaces, certain fabrics. The feel of this is okay, but maybe the feel of this chair wouldn't be. I don't know.
Paper.
Yeah, certain papers I don't like the feel of.
And newspaper.
I hate the smell and the feel of newspaper.
I agree.
Right. You agree?
Yeah, I don't like particularly the smell of newspaper.
They don't print any good news anyway anymore. Don't bother.
So I don't even order newspaper at my house.
So, but these are good things to know that people and that everybody has something different. What are you sensitive to?
Nothing really. I mean, just like kind of. I mean,
Chores.
Yeah, chores. I won't do them unless like I really have to. But even then, it's kind of like a.
You have the ability to kind of check out.
Drift off a little bit.
Yeah, and Emily, you can kind of drift off into your own world. Dan, can you do that?
No.
You're always on.
Yeah.
You're always in the situation and.
Pretty much, but the only time my mind is drifting is when I'm in downtime. I'm just relaxing.
Yeah.
And Lucas, you're pretty much.
I can't, and even if I could, I don't think it would be healthy if I did. That's not really a great place for me.
For La La Land?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is not something that you can do. And
No.
that's certainly not something Alex can do. Alex is on all the time. And his mind, he's always thinking of something.
And he said there was always music playing in his head until you talked about the TV And he goes, I have the TV on too, but it doesn't match with the music in my head. It's like two different channels.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, oh.
Do you want, I know we've talked about this before, but it is a great example.
Oh, you want me to elaborate on
The
the
TV.
TV? Yeah, I've compared being on the spectrum to like having a TV in my head that I can't turn off, and I've lost the remote control, so it keeps switching channels every few minutes on its own, and I can't do anything to stop it or turn it off. I just sort of stuck here with my eyes taped open watching this TV, and every now and then it'll be a really cool channel, and then it'll switch out for like boring Hawaiian elevator music or something with static screen, or sometimes it'll just be all static and I want to go bang my head on a wall over and over. And so it makes it very hard to focus or to unfocus in a lot of cases, including mine.
So you don't have your brain is not quiet that often.
No, really ever.
But when you do video games or things like that, that's a way of
Yeah.
sort of balancing you.
Yeah, it sort of drops a curtain in front of the TV and muffles things a little bit and makes it a little bit easier to not have my mind so hyper-focused on all those annoying flipping channels.
One of the things that Alex says, and it's true, it's very true for many of them, is for many of our kids is eye contact. And so for parents with with newly diagnosed kids, it's if your child is not making eye contact, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what does Alex say?
Alex says, when I look in your eyes, I can't hear what you're saying. So he can't look at the face and still listen and comprehend what you're saying. So he'll try looking at you just so you know he's with you, and then he'll look away and he'll hear what you're saying, and then he'll try to respond back.
What were you going to say, Dan?
No, I was just going to say that's the same thing with me when I was younger too.
You couldn't make eye contact?
I couldn't make eye contact very easily. Now I can do it a little bit better.
Yeah, you're amazing. And I forgot that because you do so well on this Nutmeg show that when we did a panel, I forgot it was your first panel. And afterwards you said, phew, that was my first panel. And everybody looked at you and said, you're kidding.
Yeah, really.
You haven't been on a panel with us before? Well, it's time for us. It goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
I know I say this every time, but it's almost time to end.
Yeah.
And what final thoughts would anybody like to have? What would one thing you'd like to say, Sharon, to parents?
Oh my. As Alex, let's see. I'd have to say, listen to your kids even when they're not talking, because he always says that's the most important thing, to look at the behavior and try to figure out what's wrong.
Yep.
And then tell the child that you're helping, you're trying to help, even if you don't know what the problem is, say, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to understand, and that helps him, whether you actually figure it out or not.
Lucas, how would you like to wrap it up? Because I can see that we're coming to a close here.
Free Nelson Mandela. Oh wait, wrong channel, sorry. Actually, no. I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and hopefully we've provided some good insight into what parents can do for newly diagnosed kids. And we really look forward to seeing you guys all for our next episode.
Yep.
And believe, and there is support out there, and you're not alone.
Yep.
So, on that note, we say adios.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next
See you next
time.
time.